Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm actually talking about the new Michael Jackson biopic, just entitled Michael. This is a film that basically covers the Jackson 5 portion of Michael Jackson's life, all the way up to his uh, Bad album that he did in concert. So basically, I would say most of his life in the 60s through all the way through the late 80s, roughly, I would say that covers uh, that his musical portion of his life. But in this film, though, you guys, do get his real life nephew Jaafar Jackson playing Michael Jackson in the film. Um, Colman Domingo plays his father Joe Jackson in the film, and we also get to see um, kind of what the Jackson Five members, like his brothers and his sister, were doing roughly around the time all this was going on. Kind of his mom's take on certain things, on parts of his life where she thought Joe Jackson was being too tough on him, parts of his life where she was kind of coaching him and mentoring him to basically be his own person, to shine the light, to basically make sure that if you have a special gift, in his case, singing and dancing, to make sure that you embrace that talent as best as you can. The film also depicts his love of animals, his love of helping children that are recovering in the hospital. Um, so basically, this film, like I said, covers basically his life within the Jackson Five, the intensity he would face with his father, as well as his own solo career, kind of how he got into a solo career, managed to work around his father to get that up and going. And like I said, roughly all the way to the Bad tour, where he got to showcase some songs that he got to make for that album, and that's essentially the duration of what the Michael film covers in the Michael Jackson life. But overall, guys, I actually really enjoyed this film quite a bit. I did hear a while ago that they were trying to get a Michael Jackson biopic up and going. Obviously, Anton Fuqua of Training Day fame eventually took the director reign for the film, and I know there was some production problems. I know there was certain things that the estate of Michael Jackson wasn't willing for them to cover in a film. There were certain things on legal issues that they weren't allowed to cover in the film. Um, I know they had to reshoot a bunch of things because they were going to go into the allegation portions of his life, with him having to deal with the courtroom and accusations of some things that people accused him of. So there were some things that they weren't allowed to do as far as how that was depicted in the film. But I guess with everything being all said and done, what they were allowed to cover and what they were willing to cover, and kind of what they were hoping to cover over the course of this film, I think they did a good job with all that. I think Antoine Fuqua directed a very good film. He definitely captured the bigness of Michael Jackson, kind of what it was like to really witness his fame and stardom at the time he was alive, and the time that he was putting on all this really good music that was constantly topping the charts, and how he went solo, and all the stuff you would want from a Michael Jackson film. I think they do a pretty good job here of covering all that stuff. So I do want to go over some positives and negatives as to why I enjoyed the film overall, but some things about it as well that I think could have been better. That I'm going to cover my negatives here too. So first and foremost, for the positives, I feel like this film does capture the time period that it is trying to depict throughout the film. Whether it is the Jackson Five going on tour, the way the clothes look, the way the interiors look inside the buildings, inside the homes, even the smaller stuff like when he's walking around a toy store with the bodyguard, how it does feel like a way a toy store would feel back in that time. Um, all that stuff really does kind of capture the moment in Michael Jackson's life really well, I thought. It also does kind of cover the musical genius that he was, that he really um, saw life in a way where his music was essentially about how he wished life could be, how we can, center around the good stuff, that we don't always have to focus around the bad stuff. Um, how he got inspired to make certain music, how, working with Quincy Jones, working with other music producers that really kind of believed in him and really thought that he really was kind of one of a kind for his musical talents. I thought all that stuff was captured very well over the course of this film too. I also like how when Michael is on tour and he's in a concert, it really does make you feel like you're kind of have that front row seat within that concert, watching him perform, whether it is the Bad tour, whether it is the Thriller tour or anything like that, or him touring with the Jackson Five again. It really does feel like an in concert feel of what's truly like to kind of have a front row seat in those concerts and watch him perform and kind of witness what it was like when when he first did the moonwalk live on TV and all that kind of stuff. So I really thought they had a great in concert feel over the course of this film too. I also thought Jaafar Jackson, who's Michael Jackson's nephew in real life, and Colman Domingo, I thought their performances in particular were very, very good here. Jaafar Jackson does a good job both sounding like Michael Jackson, looking like him, walking around like him, interacting with other people the same way Michael Jackson would. And then Colman Domingo, he was very intimidating. You definitely got the sense that when somebody disagreed with him or wasn't on the same page as him, you did not want to be on that guy's hate list. They really do reinforce the idea that um, he always viewed himself as kind of the creator of Michael, the creator of the Jackson Five, the guy that got them out of Gary, Indiana. And though he had his fame and accomplishments as well, there was times where when Michael, did the moonwalk or sold the most albums for his Thriller album, he would kind of take that fame into his own and kind of egotistically manifest basically that success from another person to his own successes and interpret that in all the wrong ways. And so I thought the film did a great job of doing that, as well as Colman Domingo interpreting that. So I'll be very happy if he gets an Oscar nomination later in the year, because he really did do a very good job of playing a very intimidating Joe Jackson for the film. And like I said, both him and Jaafar Jackson really do turn in great performances here, I thought. And like I mentioned earlier, the film really does capture the bigness of Michael Jackson's fame. It really does feel like, when Michael went somewhere, when he was done with a concert, when he was leaving a building somewhere, even something as simple as that, there was crowds everywhere. Everybody wanted his autograph, even small stuff too, like him buying stuff at the toy store and him kind of forming an unofficial autograph line for just people to come in, and they'll write their name on whatever they're wanting to autograph and stuff like that. The film really does capture the bigness of how huge of a musician he was back when he was alive, and I thought that he did a great job of capturing that bigness of his fame. And the film also, like I mentioned before when I was covering Colman Domingo's performance, the film also really does depict well the dark side of Joe Jackson. It really does cover the horrible fights he would have with his wife, the horrible fights he would have with all his kids, specifically Michael. Um, it really did show just kind of how awful of a person he was. And I'm glad that the estate allowed that to be covered in the film, because it's something that really is kind of an eye opener, as far as it really is kind of too bad we live in a world where people can become that bad, that can become that evil, that can almost kind of feel like it's okay to talk to people that way and to treat people that way. Um, and I'm glad that the film really does dive into the idea that a lot of the stuff he was doing was wrong. And I really do feel like um, Michael would have lived a happier life if he kind of backed away a little bit more, if he would have listened to criticisms a little bit more. Um, uh, I thought the way the film depicted all of that, as far as what he was doing, what was wrong, and just letting Michael Jackson be his own musician, almost kind of let him be his own manager if allowed to. And yeah, I thought the dark side of Joe Jackson, I thought, was depicted very well here, whether that's good or bad for those who are kind of squeamish. There's a lot of scenes where he does stuff that is pretty awful to do to somebody. I also thought Michael Jackson's bodyguard and his lawyer were well depicted here too. I thought Miles Teller, who plays his lawyer, I thought did a great job with that role. Um, Definitely a very supportive character. Definitely gave appropriate criticisms, unlike what Joe Jackson was doing. Um, Found a way to kind of grow Michael's career in all the right ways. It was. I also didn't realize that he was also the lawyer for the Beach Boys, so that was kind of interesting to find it out while watching the film too. Um, And also his bodyguard I thought was very supportive and very fun character as well. I also didn't realize that Michael kind of viewed him as a father figure while he was alive too. He kind of was the person that he was hoping Joe Jackson was going to be when he went solo, and this guy kind of really became his unofficial father figure as a result of that. So I thought both the bodyguard character and the lawyer character were very effective in the film too. But for my negatives of the film, unfortunately, I do feel like the Jackson 5 content is skimmed by very quickly in the film. It's almost like we get like maybe a couple minutes of certain scenes, a couple minutes of a concert, a couple minutes of their successes, and it really just kind of skims right by almost because they do show you the year when they're jumping around to certain scenes in certain time frames. I really do feel like they kind of skim by the Jackson 5 stuff a little too quickly. That's really too bad because I feel like a lot of the Jackson 5 content was also very good in the film too. I also thought there was a lot of times in the film where it felt very sanitized, almost too good to be true kind of moments. There's a lot of scenes where it's fine if they want to do it once or twice, but there's a lot of scenes where Michael's visiting sick children in the hospital, and the film almost kind of is edited together like he did that like almost every day, kind of. And I don't. It felt a little too sanitized and too good to be true for its own good. And it's not even just those scenes. There's a lot of scenes where Michael's depicted as almost being too perfect, and there's scenes where, because I know in his real life too, he had a lot of depression problems. He really kind of hid himself away from society when he wasn't on tour, wasn't on concert. That there's a lot of people that personally knew him that said that he would just kind of crawl into a ball and cry and just say that everybody was leaving him and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of scenes where I almost wish they kind of showed what kind of his problems were and what, without kind of sanitizing it too much. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is it would have been nice to see kind of more of his flaws as a person too, because I do feel like if they showed the more human side to him as well, we could relate to that as a viewer and also realize that there's parts of him that weren't perfect and that also could have used improvement just as a human being as well. I also just thought more time with Michael's psyche would have been better beneficial too. And I know with him passing away and taking stuff to the grave and stuff like that, we probably will never officially learn the official psyche of Michael Jackson. But from people that he knew, people he worked with Quincy Jones, with his siblings, and people that just have all these stories about him, you would think with all this time that's passed, even since the time that he's passed away, um, that we would kind of have a better understanding of his psyche, the way he would think, the way he came up with certain songs and stuff like that. I just thought whenever we do get little glimpses of that in the film, it really was shining through very well. And I just would have liked to have seen more time of his psyche, the way he processed stuff, the way he viewed stuff. I thought it would have been a more beneficial film if we spent a little more time on that. And just overall, too, I thought some of the supporting characters could have used more development. We really don't get to learn a lot about the other members of the Jackson 5. We really don't get to learn about his mom. We really don't get to learn about um, this producer for MTV that really kind of pushed his Billie Jean music video to the forefront and really got it more noticed on television and got him more fans. Um, Played by Mike Myers, by the way. It was fun to see him. Um, so I just thought more development for those supporting characters would have been more beneficial for the film too. It just would have been nice to learn a little bit more about some of those supporting characters. But overall, guys, I'm going to give Michael an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very enjoyable film. I really liked it a lot. There's definitely a lot of things to love and admire about it. If you're a Michael Jackson fan in any way, shape, or form, I think you're really going to enjoy this film. Like I said, it does skim by the Michael or the Jackson 5 stuff pretty quickly. There is a lot of sanitized, too good to be true kind of moments throughout the film. More time with Michael's psyche, I think, would have been better. And then just more development for those supporting characters, I thought could have been better as well. But 8.5 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed the film. If you're a Michael Jackson fan, I think you're really going to enjoy this. And yeah, huge thumbs up for me. I recommend it. 8.5 out of 10 for me. I recommend seeing the film.